Hi guys, believe it or not, Brexiteers are angry. So it's come to light that the current Attorney General, Richard Hermer, compared to those who are calling for the UK to abandon the European Convention on Human Rights and international law to a certain group of people from 1930s Germany. Now, he didn't use the actual term, but that doesn't make any difference. So as we know, the far right don't like being called far right and therefore are extremely angry with Keir Starmer's Attorney General. Here, a Reform UK mayor and former Tory and current Brexit supporter is fuming over the comparison, but then went ahead and perhaps demonstrated why the comparison is apt.
I think it's just typical of the left, isn't it? These bleeding heart liberals who look down on the common sense folk of Britain. They sneer at us and assume that we're all far right Nazis, don't they? I mean, all the British people want is actually not a foreign court to be able to
It's not a foreign court, it's an international court. The UK has a judge on that court. So it's not a foreign court. If it was located in London, it would still be an international court.
Dictate of what happens here in Britain. And I recall, like 2 years ago, I had a petition to leave the ECHR along with Claire Bullivant from the Compost. And we've got over 50,000 signatures. And there's an appetite for it out there.
I'm not saying that there isn't an appetite for people to surrender their own protections, because that's what the European Convention on Human Rights is there for, is to protect British people. Now, of course, GB News will never raise this point. Tories will never raise this point. Reform UK certainly won't raise this point. It's there to protect British citizens, including freedom of expression, something they talk a lot about. But of course, it's framed as we need to leave it in order to deport people, which is completely false.
But I remember, being a Conservative at the time, how I was looked down at by the One Nation in the Conservative Party.
Yes, because you are opposite to them. They believe in human rights. There are still Tories who believe in human rights. The Brexiteers obviously don't support the idea of human rights because they want to take away protections for those human rights.
Who was...
Like, what do we call people who are against human rights? What do we call people who want to kick foreigners out and not respect international law? I don't know. Maybe we could ask the Attorney General.
Because I was trying to push this. So I think the issue is, I think both parties have been out of touch. I fully support what Reform are trying to do, because let's face it, this is the only way we're going to control our borders.
No. For example, recently Denmark has deported a significant number of people. It's a member of the European Convention on Human Rights. Other European countries are deporting people. So when the Tories and Reform UK say we need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights to deport people, well, that's completely false. But even look at Britain itself. It's still a member and it's still deporting people. Now, there are certain cases where you can't deport people because they're relying on the convention. But as a rule, yes, you can deport people even being a member of the European Convention on Human Rights.
And actually, stop these boats coming over and the lefty lawyers suing.
It's strange, isn't it? Canada or the United States, they don't sign up to some Pan-America's court, sort of headquartered in Rio de Janeiro. And Australia and New Zealand don't sign up to some oceanic court, perhaps headquartered in Indonesia. I mean, these countries are able to have their own legal systems, apply within their own countries. I mean, why do we think Britain has to be so different from Australia?
This is supposed to be journalism. Like, is this guy really this stupid? Did he actually go to school? Did he actually read history? Does he understand what happened in Europe in the 1940s? Does he understand the role Britain played in the writing of the convention? Does he know what happened to create a scenario where human rights were taken away? Why it was necessary to have a protection for human rights? Once again, this is supposed to be journalism.
Australia or New Zealand or Canada, for heaven's sake?
Because I think we've had for quite a long time some weak politicians in governments, haven't we, who like to be part of this globalist agenda. I mean, did you...
What does this mean? Because I've heard a lot of terms thrown around, which may be connected to the actual topic here. When people talk about globalism or globalist or globalist agenda, you know, I think we should do a bit more scrutiny on this actual term and understand what it actually means. Because I've yet to hear a Reform UK MP or a candidate for mayor or existing or current mayor ever challenged on this term.
See only, what was it last week, that Starmer signed us up to the WHO where they can potentially impose lockdowns. And
whoa. Now you're after the WHO, the World Health Organization. Reform UK want to leave that as well. Is there anything that they don't want to leave apart from this planet?
Me, you know, I'm a traditionalist. I believe in the nation state and sovereignty. I think that's the most important thing for a country and an island like ours. And I think the likes of Starmer, he just does not get that. And
so you think they actually prefer to... Sorry, Andrea, do you think that some politicians actually prefer to sort of defer to international courts and international judges because it's easier, less responsibility?
The journalism gets worse. It's not deferring to another court. It's a court that's higher than the British court to protect human rights. The British government would not like citizens to refer to that court, or to defer to that court, I should say. They would prefer British citizens' rights were restricted. But as a society, politicians know, you know, you can't trust the government to protect your rights. That's why there's a higher court. Look at what's happening in the United States at the moment. People are being deported to a gulag in El Salvador. Human rights are not being protected. They have to rely on the United States President and the Supreme Court to protect people's rights. But in many cases, neither are doing that. So it's important to have a court outside the state to defer to.
For themselves? I mean, surely not. Surely all politicians are power hungry.
I think also the feather in the nest for the future, aren't they? They want to be part of this globalist agenda and be part of that when they leave British politics.
It's very true, isn't it? When Neil Kinnock
look at Blair,
lost,
for God's sake.
When Neil Kinnock lost the 1992 general election, he went off to become a European commissioner. When Gordon Brown lost the 2010 general election, he went off to be a UN special rapporteur.
And Jacob Rees-Mogg went on to become a reporter or journalist or whatever for GB News. Is there an issue about politicians, ex-politicians doing something? Well, you really shouldn't be raising this point because you're hiring one of them.
These institutions exist for failed politicians.
Absolutely, completely. And look what Starmer's done with Brexit and the fishermen, etc. I think... And without a vote by the general public as well, for a second referendum. I'm flabbergasted, really. I think we all warned about what...
A second... what? A vote for a second referendum? What the hell are you talking about? You're against a second referendum. I love how these people keep talking about democracy. Democracy needs to be protected. We love democracy. But then as soon as somebody says, well, let's have another referendum, they're like, no, we don't want that. That's too much democracy. They're pathetic. So is it right to compare those calling to leave the European Convention on Human Rights to Nazis? Well, there is a certain crossover. Once again, these people do not care about the rights of British people. They're willing to throw them under a bus in order to achieve something else. And I've said before, it's about benefiting the richest in society. Corrupt businesses. They would like to see human rights and worker rights taken away because it would benefit them. And they'll back parties like the extreme of the Conservatives or Reform UK in order to achieve that. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.